Hello, can you guys hear me? Are you hearing me? We'll just wait for a yes or a no. Yes, they can hear me. All right, let's try it again. So, welcome back. Let's try it again. I'm NQ Naris, aka Space Mom Community Manager here at NovaQuark. It is a pleasure to be with you guys again. It has been far too long since the last time we did one of these, so we are excited to get at it. That said, I don't want to waste any time, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest of honor, which is our CEO and Creative Director, JC. JC, come on board.
Hello, hello. Hello, everybody. So, yeah, I'm here and ready to answer tons of questions and also give you lots of information about the new 023 that is upcoming.
And that's exactly what we're going to kick this off with. We've got lots to talk about in 023 and maybe some future stuff as well. So, JC, let's
Yeah.
start right at the beginning.
So there's a lot to say. Yes. So 023 is about to come out. If everything goes well, it should be there by the middle of the week. And this is a major balancing update. So I wanted to tell you more about it because it's gonna shake a little bit, in compared to what it was before. And this is part of a trend we want to push now to balance and equilibrate the game in a way that it makes it more suitable for the long term and having a game that really can stand the test of time. So one of the perhaps the most important change that is coming with the 023 is the new industry schematic item change. So that means maybe you've seen the blog post that we have released. So maybe some of you know that already. Just the idea is that I'm going to get back, to the core of the idea of what an industry unit is supposed to be. An industry unit is supposed to be a sort of a factory, something that is, if you were to compare it to the real world equivalent, that is a factory. That's, it would be a large building that costs millions, sometimes billions to actually build, and is a strong commitment. You don't make a factory just for the pleasure. You do it because you have a strong commitment to become an industrialist. So you want to mass produce items that probably you're not even going to use yourself, but that's your business and that's what you do, and that's the reason why you invest all this money and all this time into building this factory. And that's the spirit of what we wanted to do from the start with the notion of industry unit. It turns out that the price of elements in the game are based on basically their size and tier. But I mean, we couldn't have, without major disruption in the equilibrium, we couldn't have an industry unit that would be costing billions or hundreds of millions. So that was the first iteration where you just had the industry unit, and that was it. You could run any kind of recipes, as they were called at the time. We just changed the name because there was too much cooking in this. So ingredients recipe becomes schematics and components. So that was the first draft. The real intention is still to make sure that when you go into the industry business, it's because you want to become an industrialist, not because you want to build just a few elements or this or that. That is the role that is fulfilled by the markets in the game. So the logic is that now when you want to build something, you want to run a schematics or recipe, what you're going to do is that you're going to have to buy one of the schematics item that you load inside your industry unit. And that will actually allow you to produce and run the recipes as many times as you want to run the recipe schematics. So I'm going to just say schematics from now on, but you get it. And so the thing is that that particular item that you buy so that you can start a production line on that item, I mean, the item that is related to the schematic, that is going to cost you actually a lot compared to, the price of whatever is produced. If you look at a typical factory, I mean, whatever it's producing is its value is usually way, way, way lower than the cost of the factory. And that makes sense because you're supposed to mass produce it. And then you're going to make, a small profit on every one of those items, and adding up on time, you recoup your initial investment and start to make money. So that's the same logic here. If you want to start to produce something, you have to invest upfront, and that is today means that you're going to go buy a schematic item that you will plug into your industry unit. So that's the essence of this. So some of you, of course, have read all the feedbacks, and we had a lot of conversation with the community already. So some people say, well, that's how I'm going to do. I mean, I was used to actually building everything from collecting the raw materials to building the end product, with maybe 10 steps in between. Well, that was not the intent of the design of the game. What you're supposed to do is that if the item you have at the end is for one use or maybe 5, 10 uses, you're supposed to go buy it on the markets. From who? Well, from somebody who has decided to specialize into building that particular item, and that somebody probably doesn't actually go down to mining and rebuilding the whole chain. He's probably going to buy intermediary parts from the markets as well, from somebody else who's building those parts, and so on and so on, up. I mean, down to the people who are actually mining ore. And that's the idea, is that the long chain of industry production that we had so far is going to be sliced into specialized players that are going to focus on certain steps on this. And because there's the markets, all this can fluidly travel and exchange between each other players. That is also why it doesn't mean that the situation now is, if you want to play solo, it's not like, oh, I'm helpless. I cannot build a giant factory all myself solo because of the cost. So what am I going to do? Am I supposed to join a large organization? Well, you can do that for sure, but there's no problem if you don't, because you can just join the markets, in a sense. That's that's where all the other players are going to provide you with whatever you need and you don't want to focus on. Uh, so that's the logic here. We are going back to civilization building, large scale MMO with time scales that are more like in years rather than months. We know that with the previous design, many people actually ended up building omni factories or gigafactories in about a month. That is not the way the game is supposed to work. It's fine if it's a single player game, or a small group of player type of game, but this is not the intention here. The intention is that we create a society of players and they all interact with each other and you specialize. Now, the key thing is going to be, if you think about what I just said, at the end of the day, it's going to be, how do I make money so that I can actually buy the stuff that I use to produce? So there's only, either you produce yourself or you get money somehow so that you can buy your stuff, right? So right now, this is something that we still need to improve on and develop more ways for you to make money. Right now, the sources of money are the daily reward if you log in daily. There is also, of course, mining, and you can sell some of those resources to bots. And otherwise, for the moment, that's pretty much everything. We're going to add later on, I'm going to talk about that, things along the lines of missions or repeatable sort of tutorials where you can get the reward once a day, things like that. But at the end of the day, also a way to make money is going to be participating in the economy. So there's many ways to make money, starting with trading. In fact, there's a lot of trading opportunities today, especially since the markets are not completely fluid yet. There's a lot of opportunity to buy low and sell high. So I would probably say it's more profitable than just going mining. If that's what if you don't like mining, that's an alternative. And our job is to continue to add more options so that you can make money in a fun way that matches the way you like to play. And with that money, you'll be able to buy whatever you need. But you don't necessarily, if I want a new smartphone, the first thing I'm thinking about in the real world is not to build a smartphone factory, right? So that's the, if you want an analogy, that's basically what's happening today. We have a game where everybody wants a smartphone, builds a factory for it, and basically goes in his garden to mine the raw materials, right? There would be no Apple or no Samsung or no whatever your brand you like in the world if that was the case. It would be a very different world, maybe interesting, maybe not, I don't know, but that would be completely different. So we're taking inspiration from the real world to bring the core mechanics of economy in the game so that the market starts to work and do their job at connecting individuals together and making specialization a central concern. You should specialize. You should decide what you want to do. You should perhaps study a little bit the markets, where there's the most profitable areas, where I'm going to specialize into the industry of that particular company, because that's where there's a huge profit to make at the moment. It's not going to last because probably other players are going to make the same reasoning. So this market's going to be at some point, flooded by different competitors. The prices are going to go low. So this is going to be a fluid thing going on in the game. Okay, I was a bit long, but this is really a big change in the game, and I think it deserves to take a bit of time to explain it, because many of you, when you get back into the game, it would be in a sense almost a different game. If you were into the industry, it's a different goal, it's a different challenge. It's interesting. Think of it like that. I mean, the way you used to do things, it will evolve now, and you have to find your new positioning into this new ecosystem. So that's the big point I wanted to discuss about first.
And it's great to
Uh,
allow people to really specialize as well so that they'll have their
yeah,
place in the universe, which is pretty awesome.
yeah, and it's we're really making use of the fact that it's an MMO with a single shard universe. So there's only one world where all the markets can meet, and it's a giant, sort of a cauldron of interactions that is actually very, very interesting. But if we make it so that everybody is sort of independent, people sort of isolate each other and there's no need to interact with each other, yeah, we might as well do instances, and forget about the whole single shot thing. So the whole point is to actually build on top of that, and help going towards this idea of a society of players interacting with each other. And let me just say also that this is not the end of it. I mean, in the sense that we don't believe that just adding these schematic items is going to be magically starting the markets and getting everything to. We know there are some other things that are necessary to add, right? So, but this is just one of them, and step by step we're gonna finish the whole picture. So it's not like we believe it's a magical recipe that's going to be fixing all the potential issues, but it's definitely going to help and contribute a lot. We also add, when we talk about the industry, the other things is, uh, right now when you build an element, it's like forever. The element is virtually indestructible because if it gets destroyed, you can always repair it. So you never have any good reason to go buy anything new, right? That's very bad. If you think about the economy, it's like, well, imagine again with my smartphone analogy. You buy a smartphone and it repairs itself all the times. It upgrades itself, and it's always well, you never go buy another smartphone in your life, right? So the other change we're pushing here is that uh, elements after a certain number of destructions, they need to be entirely replaced, and you have up to 3 to 4 destruction depending on the type of element. So you have a sort of a warning. I mean, you see it coming. It's not like bam, in the middle of the battle, got all my engines destroyed and there's nothing you can do about it. If you're careful, you can make sure that you go to the battle with engines that have enough repair opportunities. So this at the end of the day, it's gonna get things destroyed and it's gonna get things replaced, and that will help to fuel the need for a constant demand on the markets. Very important. Again, if you think about what I just said before, and this is going towards creating opportunities for the market to work, which is fundamental for this game. We also add for the hardcore industrialists, we have now the and also for PvP and for other players, we add new tiers of elements for weapons, engines, and radar. So up to level 5, that each level is going to add more benefits. I mean, the characteristics of the elements are going to be boosted a little bit each time you go one tier up. Some of them are going to decrease, so it's not like everything is perfect. You have to make your choices what you want, but that will create opportunities to build beyond the tier 1 or tier 2 for weapons, so that you can actually go into sort of luxury industry or high-end industry. So the point of this is that even if somehow you manage to resuscitate a gigafactory, fine, there will still be other layers on top of that, and you'll still have progression. And that's an important thing in the game. You need to have progression, that you always sort of hope that they aspire to something that is going to come after. So this is introducing that. Plus, of course, all layer of complexity and interesting choices to make for ship designers regarding the type and the tier of elements they're going to use for their ship. So that's also a step. There will be more things. We are going to work on higher tier containers and things like that. So this is the first step for that. One thing about gigafactories, I made a little script to check, with the current item recipes that are in the game right now. The largest gigafactory I saw would cost 150 billion quantas to resuscitate. Just to tell you this, but this factory is the equivalent of Apple, General Motors, and whatever oil company, and like 20 others major player of the economy all together, able to produce everything from raw materials to any possible manufacturable product. And 150 billions to get that capacity, that's not a lot. In fact, that's completely, that makes sense in a sense, right? So if you think in the right way regarding what an industry unit loaded with a particular schematic is, it is a factory. That all makes sense. It's just about changing the perspective on that, and understanding the reason why we do this. I'm sure there will be tons of questions on that. So let me move on to two other changes that are going to impact your game experience. The first is a limit of the maneuver tool to 128 meters. So that's because the maneuver tool was never meant for anything else but maneuvers. It's not it's supposed to help you pick your ship that was falling in the hole, or maybe help to park it a little bit better, things like that. Certainly not to move it along anything like long distances or things like that. So that is covering a little bit of sort of exploit. It's not an exploit because you were using the tool we gave you, but I mean an extension of the use of a tool we designed for a purpose that has been used for more than it's supposed to be. If you want to transport a ship on long distance, you have to find a way to power it or to load it on another ship that can power its way. That's the way it is. You cannot move matter without spending energy. This is a fundamental of the the logic of the game. That being said, 128 meters give you ample freedom to do the things you have to do with the maneuver tool. If that's not enough, and we get feedback that demonstrates that it must be 200 meters, we'll do that. But I mean, that's the idea, is not like kilometers. That doesn't make any sense. And the other big change, it's about the Alt F4 way to stop a ship. This is funny because it's been such a long time that we postpone sort of the development that is needed to address that. A lot of you guys think that this is somehow the way it's supposed to be. That I am in a ship, I log off, and the ship freezes in space. This has never been the way it's meant to be. The logic that we want to push is that it's a real world, it's sort of a simulation. If you are inside a ship that goes at super high speed, you log off, it continues to go. We're not at that stage yet, because that would mean that the server is actually running your ship. So we cannot do that for the moment. But at least what we do is that as soon as you get back now in the ship, you restore the speed that you had, so that it appears less like you're back to exactly the situation where you were. In other words, it's about saving the state of the world before you log off, and when you come back, it's going to stay restore the state. But it's a little bit more complicated because there are ways to abuse that if you just do it like that. So the truth is that anyone who's getting near your ship should actually start to see it flying away. So that's what we've implemented. There's a ton of edge cases. We're going to deal with them and try to improve this if we discover some issues. We think it's okay now, but it's it's a pretty important change. That is, when you get if you're chasing somebody in PvP, logs off, the ship is not going to freeze anymore because you are seeing the ship. So the server is going to give you the task to continue to simulate it, right? If that doesn't make sense, Does it? I mean, I'm not going to explain the tech, but I mean, from your perspective, the guy can Alt F4. It's not going to save his ship. The ship's going to continue to straight. So if you were aligned in speed, it should work. It's a non-event for you that the guy is just Alt F4. Is its choice. No. Okay, there are sometimes power outages and things like that. This is marginal. You should not design the game on that particular event. But in normal situations, Alt F4 is not a good idea when you are about to crash on the planet or when you are chased by someone in a PvP action, right? This is a live world. You cannot just escape it by closing your eyes and that's it. So that's the spirit for this change. Um, all the ships that are currently in the game have a flag that says that they are grounded. So normally they should not fall from the sky because there's a lot of ships in the sky now. But as soon as you will start to pilot them, they will be they will be normal again, and so when you step out of them they will fall even if you
Watch
step
that
out
firsthand.
by Alta 4. Yeah. We had a funny moment in the test servers where we didn't have this grounded flag, so as soon as we connected suddenly there was raining ships everywhere. So okay, so this is fixed, and you should not see a ship raining on you, but the story of the guy who parks his ships at several hundreds meters above you, no, it's not supposed to be like that. If you want a ship in the air, you have to power it. It has to cost some energy, and that's the logic. Here again, I mean, it's a complex feature in the sense that possibly will get lots of side effects. We know that you can have a crash, you can have a power outage, you can have all sorts of unfortunate things going on. Our reasoning is that it should be rare enough that we can deal with that with customer support and you know um, adjust when that is necessary. But the normal meta is that a ship is a ship. It's there. It has a weight. You don't just log off and it stays where it is, right? So if you think about these kind of changes, if we had done it the other way, if the first version of the universe had this feature implemented and now we say, well, we remove it, I think we would have a lot of opposition from players who says, what is this game breaking, immersion breaking thing? And doesn't make any sense, right? So it's just that a lot of people got used to things that were in fact temporary. Now we fix them, and this moment where your reflexes and the way you think about the game have to be adjusted. Okay, that's all with the unpleasant changes. uh, the other things that are coming are pretty cool. They are about ship selling. So this is a very important thing coming to 023. We wanted that to happen. It's fundamental. Again, we're talking about the market and all those things. The idea is that you can actually design a ship and sell it. That is, you should be able to sell a blueprint of it to someone who buys it, and then spawn the ship from the blueprint and maybe some materials that you sold at the same time, and it gets into the ship, and that's it. And there were several issues that prevented that so far. First of all is that the ship had no digital right management, if you want. So the guy could actually look at your script. It could actually make a blueprint. Well, we fixed that on the way, but I mean, even before, I mean, it could even make a blueprint out of your own ship. You could copy paste voxels out of this ship to somewhere else, so basically stealing the design. Um, and what else? Yeah, that's pretty much enough already to deter anyone from wanting to sell the ship. And then there was some technical things missing. What we introduced is now you have a blueprint. When you make a blueprint, it's what we call a core blueprint. You can't really make a ship out of this blueprint. You need to use it to generate one run blueprints. So blueprints for short, that are going to be usable to actually run one time and spawn the ship. That as a cost, by the way. So that's the process of designing a blueprint as an idea, and the process of industrializing is replication. That's something that involves some costs because there's a notion of business going on there. That we always think into these terms on how we design the future. But if it's just one run on a small blueprint, it's not going to be a lot of money. But it's just to put in perspective. If you want to sell 1,000 ships, there's a initial investment again that untrusts the scenes. But anyway, it's a detail. The point is that this one run blueprint, you can put it into a dispenser and it's going to be one run. So once it's used, it's gone. So you don't have to worry about giving infinite capacity to reproduce your ship. And talking about dispensers, now you'll be able to inspect the content of the batch before you buy. So you see the price and you see what's in the batch, and you can inspect also the blueprint to see if it matches the ingredients that you're given. I mean, you can check, because of course we don't want to rely or trust on this, otherwise it's not going to work really. So this is now, we think, pretty good, not perfect again. I mean, we would like to be able to visualize the ship, or even actually test it in some kind of instance, right? We're not quite there yet, but this is already one step in the right direction. So you can now buy a ship. It's going to be DRM protected, so no worries. You get only one run, so you basically buy one ship, and you can automate all this through dispensers. So you can have a shop, and even if you're offline, people can come there and buy your ship. That's a very important step, so that we can go towards the idea that, like everything else, you should not be forced to build a ship from A to Z if that's not your thing. If you want to pilot them because that's what you think, or you want to explore things, you want to ship for that, or whatever other use you have for your ship, you should be able to go. Well, there's already a wonderful website, DU Creator, where you can see a lot of potential ships to buy. That's why you should think about going first. Again, when I want to buy a car, when I want a car, I think about buying a car. I don't start to build a car in my garage. Yeah, I don't know a lot of people who can do that actually. So, however, when I buy a car, I can customize it afterwards, and the same goes with the ship. So once you buy a ship, you can add some your personal touch to it. That's the spirit. That's how we want things to be. And I mean, if you like to build ships, you will always be able to build ships. That's great. But if you don't, you are not forced to. That means you can buy one, right? So that was a feature we tried to sort of introduce that with the ship shop that is next to the districts, but it's just it's one step. Again, that was not enough, of course. So now every player can actually build his proper ship shop, and that's, I think, will be a very, very big change in the game, and a good motivation for ship designers, ship builders. Not the same people necessarily. You can design the ship, but don't care about the mass production of it. It's not a problem. You are the sort of the artist that create, or the engineer who creates the design. Somebody else is taking care of the industrialization. That's how it should be. Uh, Also, a lot of good stuffs on the Lua side. So I'm not going to detail everything. There's actually a lot, but for industry people, there's a lot of introspection that allows you to check what are the recipes running, and do a lot of things that were basically missing, inspecting the content of a container, things like that. So that was long due, and this has been added. We added also some cool stuff about waypoint management. So now you can spawn a waypoint from Lua, or in fact from an info button. So without any Lua, you press on a button, it creates a waypoint for you with authorization and so on. I mean, you cannot do that unless the person agrees, but you have this option, to say you want to go there. Well, click here and you're going to have a waypoint. That's a cool thing. You have ways also to input text in Lua now through the console, so you can type something and the Lua gets it. So whatever you want to do with that, but it basically is a console, so you can start to chat with your Lua, whatever. There's also the light that you can now control in RGB, both in Lua or without, through a menu. Which is a bit crude, but it's first iteration. It has the merit of existing. So it's just in time for making wonderful, colored trees for Christmas and so on. So that's there. We also extended, as an experiment, the emitter receiver distance to 1 kilometer. We know this can generate a lot of cool stuff, but it might actually have some side effects. We want to measure that. We will see, but it's there. So play with that if that's your thing. We'll see how it pans out. Also, improvements long due on the map, so that you can better make sense of all those tiles. Today is just my tiles in green and everything red, right? So we wanted to make it possible so you can at least already visually see two colors for your tiles that you own and the one of your org. That's one level. And then there's an option. It's a bit it's a bit taxing on CPU, so it's disabled by default. But if you activate it, you can see the frontier. If you have a big blob of red, now you'll be able to see the frontier, the boundaries between those red tiles, even though you're not owning them. You'll be able also to view any particular organization tiles, so you'll be able to single them out so to see better. And finally, I think that's going to be good for a lot of people scanning. If you have a bunch of scanner results in your inventory, there's a way in the map to say display those scanner results tiles, corresponding tiles, so they will appear. And if you click on them, you see the content of the scanner result. So just quality of life versus just doing all this by hand. Um, Also, new short tutorial. Probably most of you don't care because you're past that. But for new players getting into the game, the current tutorial is cool. Some people really like it. Some people don't because it's very long. So we introduced a short version that is about 1/3 of the initial length that you can choose from. So at the beginning, you decide whether you want the long or the short. So that's one step towards way better tutorials that we are working on, but it will take some time to get there. So
So
um,
you have the lower version and the not lower version, basically, that you can go into.
yeah. So we'll see how that works. But at least if you choose the long version, now it's your fault. So hopefully people will be more willing to continue.
Bring a
Um,
cup of coffee if you're going for the long one, but it's worth
yeah,
it. It's good, lots of lore.
I'm gonna get a bit of drink as well. So last thing after that, we can move to a more fluid discussion and not just my monologue, but it's about the PvP. So uh, there's a lot to do on the PvP, like a lot. There's a lot of things that we're working on now to basically redesign certain aspects so that they're going to be way more tactical, way more interesting. That every situation is a bit different from every other situation. I'm going to say a few words about that later, but um, about the current PvP, we try to address what could be addressed rapidly, knowing that there's all those changes coming. So it's we don't want to spend too much time at the moment. We have now the very important changes that we take the cross section, so the apparent size of the construct as a factor in the hit formula instead of the size of the core. That is, no matter your core unit, if you have a big ship, it's going to be easier to hit than a small ship, right? That's a simple principle. And overall, the idea is that the core unit should not be something you use in PvP physically based sort of calculations, because they don't represent anything physical. The size of the construct, that is something you can talk about, that is makes sense. But the core unit, you can make a small ship with a big core, right? So doesn't necessarily mean, if you have a large core, doesn't mean you have a large ship. So we needed something more physically based, and that is the cross section. We also have tied the weapon sizes to the core sizes. This is something, it's going to be evolving. This is just a temporary way to control a little bit better how ships are designed. And there's the Borg cube. Everybody knows about that, right? So this is going to mitigate, but not completely solve these kind of problems. We introduce also new radar, which are basically scaled on range. So depending on the size of the radar, you have more or less range, but it doesn't matter. They can see any ship in those ranges. This is also just it's a step, but the real changes that are going to come are not for this version, probably not the next release, but if everything goes well in the next release, then there will be profound improvement and really cool stuff coming on the PvP. So, but this is just one thing we do in 023 to patch a little bit things so that the most um, uh, problematic things get addressed. At least we hope. We'll see, and if we need to do more, we'll do more until the big update. That's about it for the major things in 023. There are also a lot of bug fixes a very long list and lots of things, polish and quality of lives that I'm not going to go into details. There's a change log, but I think this is giving you a good overview of what's coming.
And that's just it. We have so much happening. Please do make sure you take the time to read through the change log because it's a big one. I think that's going to be going out this week. I don't know if we wanted to give away the date or not yet, JC.
Well, I mean, it's this week, yes.
Yes. Okay.
We better be, there could always be, something that forces us to delay by one day or something, but we don't like to ship at the end of the week. So that gives you another hint, because then comes the weekend, and that's not the best time to address potential issues. So yeah, we'll see. But this week, soon.
Exactly. So we'll have some news for you guys very soon on that. We are going to talk about some of the upcoming things as well, but I just wanted to let you guys know we are going to take some questions regarding what we've talked about up until this point, up to 0.23. So if you have questions, get them in. The rest of the community team is out there gathering your questions, and we will get to them as soon as we're done here. So as many as we can. JC, do you want to talk about the stuff that we are also working on for Future Forward?
Yeah, I think it's important to give you a bit of an overview of what's coming, because you might think the 023 is not bringing new content and new things, what's going on, etc. So a lot is going on. The 023 is actually a big work and big release for us. So there's a lot of things in it. We also had to fix a lot of bugs that appear since the beta. So this there's always the trade-off between fixing the bugs and adding new things. So I just want to give you a bit of a perspective on what's going to come, at least what we intend to do. We want to work on the mission system. This is a fundamental part of this society, of players. In a sense, it's like a job market. It's a way to advertise things that you need to be done, and that you don't necessarily have time or don't necessarily want to do, but you're willing to pay for it to be done, right? So that's a very simple idea. It's like, we have a market today for things, for items and things. We need a market also for jobs. That's the second fundamental thing that is needed. And so the mission system is about that. What we're trying to do is a system that is at the same time open, so that if you have a very particular mission type, you can actually express it, and people will be able to browse that and see what's available. We want also to make it so that there are certain types of missions that are very standard, that gets covered by the game, so that you have all sorts of mechanisms that help you to design those missions very quickly and to answer those missions if you're interested, with a level of security. Is growing the reward, for example, things like that. I'll give you one example of a mission that would be very important, is sort of FedEx missions, if you want, for the market. So if I buy something on a market that is a few kilometers, like 30, 100 kilometers away, I might actually like to be able to set a mission together with that buying that I've just done, that basically says, if somebody is going to bring it back to me in a given container, for example, then I'm going to pay that person. So you trade basically time, because you don't get the thing immediately. If you want it immediately, you need to take your ship and go and pick it, but you trade it against money. So you pay so that you're going to spend more time, but you don't have to do the work yourself. I think it's a very interesting idea that is going to create a lot of entry level jobs. Probably not something you dream to do all your time, but it's a nice addition to the things you could do, joining the game. You can actually, and some of those missions, they will be ranked by difficulty, so that difficulty 1 means that probably with a basic speeder, you can actually do the mission and bring back some things that are not very heavy from the market to whoever is asking. So this kind of thing, it's just an idea. It's just an illustration. We are working on different types of missions. Of course, there is the mission that everybody think about, which is a bounty mission. So this is a little bit more complicated to design well. So that's probably going to not make it in the first iteration of the mission system, but it's obviously a very interesting one. But that's the idea. We provide certain stereotyped missions that we offer, with all sorts of ranking, and also there will be a reputation system, so you can know a little bit who's trustable, because of course some of those missions will be traps, right? So that's part also of the harsh reality of a world that we want to make a little bit realistic. So you have to be careful, check, who is offering this incredibly well-paid mission to, transfer this item from point A to point B. Bizarre. So that kind of things, right? So that's going to be interesting, and this is probably coming next after we have pushed the 023. So that's the next big release. And then, as I said, there's a big work that needs to be done on the PvP, but it's not only PvP as you understand it today with the weapons and so on, but there's also the energy management that's going to intervene in the PvP, that in the sense that weapons are going to use energy basically. So you cannot just put an infinite amount of weapons if on your ship. But also since it's about energy, uh, energy is going to share with the engines, it's going to be shared with other parts of the ship. So it's going to be interesting in terms of trade-offs between weapons and the rest. So the idea is that this revamp is going to put together PvP, energy management, tactic about the design of the ship, and all sorts of things that are going to be super cool. So, of course, we're going to talk more about that. I just want to give you an idea that things are on the way. Also, in the PvP section, an important thing is to give more reasons to fight. So we want to, for example, introduce asteroids that are going to be very valuable with a lot of minerals you can get there, but they're going to be in a non-safe zone, right? So, okay, you can get rich quick, but you're not the only one. So there's going to be a potential PvP risk there, and other things along that line. We want to create situations that are going to be generating PvP, even though we believe also in the long term that PvP will not need a lot of help. There will be, as soon as there is actually the third thing I want to talk about, which is territory warfare and management. There will be naturally reasons for people to fight because territory will be made more valuable than they are today. And therefore, wherever there's value and if there's scarcity, there will be trade, but there will also be combat, depending on the way you want to play it. So this is upcoming. So I don't want to talk about version numbers and so on, but we have a plan for 2021, which is going to work on all this mission system, better PvP, asteroids, territorial warfare. This is in the making, and together with many other things that needs to be added on top of that, so that we get a real emergent civilization game where everybody can find his place and specialize and get have fun in the type of things he likes. That's the big challenge. So that's it about what's coming, and I can't wait now to go to the more interactive part
The
where we're
questions
going to
and
talk
answers.
about questions. I'm
So
done.
I'm going to give JC a moment to take a breath because he's been talking quite a bit, which is great. But I want to talk to you guys about the topic that I know is stressing some of you out, and that is the support queue. We know this is a sore topic for you guys, so I just want to address that with you and let you know that we have been working really hard to scale up the team. I don't think it's a secret that right out of the gate at the beta start, it was a bit rough. So we are scaling up the team. We've got lots of new faces. I'm sure you've probably seen some of them out there, interacted with them. During that period of time when we came out of beta, we were prioritizing tickets based on getting people into the game, so access primarily, and we deprioritized other issues, which we're now working through the backlog on. And I know that's been really frustrating, but we just want you guys to know that we do hear you. We are working on improving that, and I think we've gotten it pretty well. I think we're down 85% now, so we're almost there, guys. We'll get you caught up. In addition to that, we also did give a free month of game time to everyone that was affected from the first month of gameplay, and you should have that now if you don't already. Check your account. But just want to let you know that that has been on our mind, and we care about you guys a lot. So we're still working on that with you. That's it for me. So let's get into your questions and answers. Are you ready, JC?
Ready?
Awesome. So one of the biggest ones that I've seen flipping by all day today is about wiping and rebalancing. Are we looking at wiping either quanta or skill talents or the server?
Certain talents are going to be I'm not saying wiped, but they will be restituted to you, the talent points, so you can use them differently. And overall, when we touch a certain gameplay, the talents related to that gameplay will be refunded so that you can, reconsider what you wanted to do. Um, about the wipes, the one of the big concerns people have is that some people have those gigafactories, and so they are sort of very rich and they have all those things. Um, we'll see how it pans out. But first of all, those gigafactories are not going to work out of the blue, and it's, as I said, 150 billion quantas. As far as we know, this is way above what even those big organizations have. Maybe they hide, money in some ways. Okay, fine, but we'll see how it goes. Um, our belief is that all this money, all those things that have been produced will be re-injected into the economy, because there's more interest in trading them if you don't use them. The thing is, a lot of people have frantically produced things just in case, but they don't really use them. So at some point, you scratch your head and you say, well, why do you keep all those things? I could sell them and make profit, and with this money, well, actually, maybe I could buy some more schematics, for example, if that's your thing, or another ship or whatever you want to buy. So we'll see how it goes. As we always said, there is always the possibility that we do a wipe, but we're gonna do it. I don't like this word wipe because it's implies somehow that we wipe. There's nothing left afterwards. There are a lot of intelligent things we can do to redistribute things, or to restart things in a way that doesn't mean that you start from zero. So we're going to see that. I don't have any announcement to make because it's not in the plans. Really, it is not. Right now, we want to stick with no wipe. But if the situation becomes obviously problematic, then this is always an option. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Perfect. Next to that, we also were talking about the recipe rebalancing. Are we going to be able to show off some of the new costs or get that information out?
Um, yeah, I could, but I don't have them, right in front of my eyes. There's the formula. Um, okay, so about the cost, the idea is that tier one simple things should be accessible, within, the kind of rewards you get per day, right? That's a sort of a metric. We sort of think in terms of number of days with the 100,000 quantas you get. So if you want to make a small industry that is doing, one of those slices in tier one, it should be fine. You should be able to do that immediately. It's not a big deal. Now, again, if you want to make tier 5 XL giant things from scratch, starting with the ore and building up everything in between, uh, billions, billions and billions. That's just fair. That's the way it should be, and that makes sense. So I think it's very progressive. And again, imagine you had not had the previous situation, and we were now from the beginning we had been, in the what's going to come with 023. If we were to do the opposite, I think most player would be absolutely furious about making the game too easy, and not challenging and not interesting. So yeah, well, we're just reversing the order for lack of time. That's fundamentally what happened. So
All right.
yep.
So these are some older questions that we actually sourced from the forums. I'm just going to throw in real fast so we don't miss them.
Mhm.
This one's from Pleon. It's what steps are being taken to address the existing basic bugs that we're encountering?
Oh, well, I don't know if I can talk about the way we manage bugs in Jira. There are priorities. There's a producer, and we schedule bugs based on what we understand and how they are problematic. There's P1 bugs that are bugs that basically prevent you from playing at all. P2 bugs is level two is when you actually lose stuff. It's your patrimonial bugs that we call them. Then there's P3 bugs that are or issues that are about allowing people to produce almost infinite wealth or things like that. So dub items and things like that. This is priority 3. And then priority 4 is anything that is breaking the user license agreement. like offensive things that we need to remove and things like that. So this is giving you an idea of how we treat things. Otherwise, we have actually a large number of bugs, which is completely normal in the beta, and we try to prioritize them and deal with them. So um, it's extremely unlikely that the bug you are encountering is not something we know about, but it's also probable that the your bug is not on top of the list because there are more pressing bugs. So yeah, so
And it
that's how it works. You have to prioritize. We have a team that is fantastic, but you know people have there's a certain number of people and there's a certain number of hours per day, right? So we do as fast as we can, and as I said, we have to balance that with the need to uh, not add new features in the sense that we want to do feature creep, but I think everybody would agree that a mission system, so a way to make money that is not only about mining, but a PvP, energy management so that the ship design is more balanced, or territory warfare, they are not just features we add for no reason. They are fundamental. They are needed for the equilibrium of the game in a way. So we do this balancing between those very important features and the very important bugs that we need to fix. So that's going on, and at the end, of the development, where we're gonna get near the final release, there will be several months where there's no feature at all. We just do bug fix. So that's the final line.
And I'm actually going to roll the next two questions together because they kind of touch the same thing. So this is from Blazemonger and Von Boy. This is regarding the industry changes that are happening in 0.23. Will it affect the outcome of product that is already in action when the roll
Mm.
or when the change takes place?
Yeah, no, no, no. I mean, if you have a currently a recipe running, an industry unit running, it will keep running. So just don't stop it, because then it's going to be not restartable. But otherwise, if you have a very long production that takes days ongoing, it's going to keep going and it's going to go to a completion. Just don't stop it. That's all, and you'll be good.
Perfect. Sorry, there's so many questions. I'm just trying to make sure we're not doubling up here. So what happens to a dead ship in PvP now? Will it just continue to drift on? Does it stay stationary? What happens with that?
Okay, so when the ship gets destroyed, everybody is killed. So unless there is some resurrection node, you're out of the picture. And then the attacker is going to simulate your ship. That's what's supposed to happen. It's a very complicated code, right? So there might be bugs here, but the intention is that the ship is going to continue to drift. So if you were matching speed, you can continue to match speed and then board the ship. And then once you're in the ship, well, you can restore it and take control of it, get into the cockpit and slow it down. Another thing is that what we're trying to do is that if there is a functional ECU, emergency control unit, it's going to be triggered. And the default behavior of ECUs is to slow down your ship if it's in space, or if it is able to do it. Of course, if you have brakes and stuff, it's going to activate them. So it normally, you should see that the ECU is activating and slowing down the ship. Um, but it will depend on the particulars of that ECU, and it will depend whether it's activated or destroyed, or that could change radically. Uh, if you want to know what's going to happen, uh, pending the fact that there could be bugs, of course, so that it doesn't work. But the intention is that it happens as it should. It's no magic. The construct is there. It has a velocity, continues. That's the way it's supposed to happen, right? Um, we added something. If you're chasing a ship that is close to the max speed or at the max speed, what happens is that okay, when there's nobody around the ship at all, nobody's seeing it, it's not moving. That's what I just said before. The server is not continuing the work, mainly because there are issues with collisions that are difficult to solve on the server for the moment. But anyway, when somebody comes near this ship, it will restart. But the thing is that every time that happens, we reduce the speed a little bit, so that if that happens frequently, at some point the ship is going to slow down and it's not going to be drifting at max speed forever. Little tweaks like that to the realism otherwise. But So you don't have drifting ships forever that nobody can uh, match in speed.
Another really big question we have coming up quite a bit, and this has been in all of our previous sessions as well, is are we going to be taking the bots out of the market?
Um, that's the intention, but not yet. But that's the intention. And frankly, with those big changes coming with 023, we're gonna have a look at the market, how it's behaving. We hope that it's going to start to work more, and the more there will be people trading on the markets, and the less we need bots. Still, there will be a need of bots in the ideal case, if you want, if we have a market that is extremely fluid. There's a lot of activities on them. So there is a price that appears by supply and demand, as a point of equilibrium. We will still inject some bot orders in the flow if you want, because that's a way for us to control the entrance or removal of money. So that's a fairly advanced system using bots actually to create money or to withdraw money from the economy. But we are not there yet. Right now, the bots are basically here so that that's another way for you to make money, to create money by selling them ores. And it's not a good, it's not a good thing because we would rather let the market do things. Um, the prices we've put are based on some model and calculations, but they cannot beat the market dynamics that we should have. But so bottom line is not yet, but as soon as we can, we'll be happy to remove them, and that should happen as soon as the markets are fluid and working properly.
Another question that players have is regards to moving damaged ships around. Obviously, we can dock to some extent, but have we thought about doing any sort of grappling or like, sorry for the IP infringement, tractor beam sort of scenarios?
Yeah, I see that one a lot in the feature vote. There's in the feature vote, there's how many votes the feature gets, but there's another number that is hidden, is how many times it has been asked by different people, and you don't see that because when that happened, we delete actually the redundant similar suggestions, but there's another hidden counter somehow, and this one is pretty ranking pretty high on that. So um, yes, it's a cool idea, no question. Do we need it? Not sure that it's absolutely needed, right? So when we are in that situation, considering everything I said before, the bugs that we need to address, the features that we need to address, usually it's not high on the priority list. So unless we come to the conclusion that there's a fundamental aspect of the game that is broken if we don't add that, I don't think that's the case. But maybe I'm wrong, then we are not going to do it immediately. But if everything goes well, we have many years ahead of us in terms of future feature updates and stuff. So that's why this feature upvote sites is very cool, because it stores a lot of ideas. There's close to 400 suggestions now that have been validated, and they're all validated because at some point we'd like to do them, right? So that's a sort of a reservoir for things to come.
We saw a question earlier about the the container link range being changed, and I just wanted to cover when that is occurring. I don't think that's in 0.23. Is that correct, JC?
We removed that from 023 because we want to remove it when we have something else instead that is making sense, that is fun, and that is good progression. So just to tell you what is the problem. The problem is that today, if you want to mine at 2 kilometers underground, you can have a container on the surface, and you skip completely the challenge of dealing with the logistics of moving your stuff up at the surface. So it makes overall something that should gradually get more and more difficult as you go deeper. New challenges should occur, logistic challenges and ways you manage, and maybe you need several players to handle that. So there's also, we're thinking about drones, mining drones that could follow you. We designed some of them. It's pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot of things that could replace this magical teleportation of matter that effectively breaks the progression. I mean, it doesn't break it. It removes the progression on mining and that is a concern. It's too easy to mine uh, large nodes, mega nodes that are T5 or something like that. It should be an adventure. It should be something that uh, poses challenges and things that you have, that are obstacles that you can overcome, and that's cool. Right now, there's no challenge, and we see people, emptying a mega node in super short times. That again is a bit like the industry problem. It should be mining T5 is not something you should be able to do until you've reached a certain, level in the game. So uh, reducing the link container distance is part of the answer, I think. But we need to provide as well things so that you'll be able to find creative, interesting, challenging, but overcoming, overcomable ways to replace this shortcut that you have today. So nothing is done at the moment, but know that teleporting uh, hundreds of thousands of liters of ore instantaneously on the surface uh, is not making sense, right? So, and the link container has been developed. Again, it's a bit like the other things. It's been developed with the idea to facilitate the life of a builder within its building zone. You build in a large zone. You don't want to constantly go back and forth to a container to refill your inventory. So link container, so you can do that with something that is nearby. That was the idea, and well, it's going way beyond that. So we're going to think about that. I cannot say when we're going to be ready to push something, but we're thinking about a way to make that more interesting. Mining T5 at 2 kilometers underground. This is game for miners. And there will be also uh, talking about mining if you want. There will be also these asteroid mining things that will add another dimension for mining. We're thinking about mining unit, but this will probably not come before territory warfare because it's tied to the territory. So just to give you an idea. So there's a lot of things coming on for miners, um, and we will have occasions to talk about that later.
I'm really excited about the asteroids. With the proposed changes coming down, will we? I'm gonna miss this question. Will we fix the AGG from randomly dropping out of the sky? Because currently players are using it to Alt F4 to lock the ship in AGG
Yeah.
anti-gravitational generator.
So uh, the thing with the AGG is that again it's supposed to be something you use as part of a mission you're doing. You're doing something. For example, when we have territory warfare, you may actually want to have a support ship that is in at about 1,000 meters above the battleground, and so that ship needs to be powered somehow. If you use rockets or standard engine, it would be extremely expensive to just maintain that huge ship. So that's why AGG has been developed as a way to provide a more manageable way to maintain the large mass at a given altitude during an operation, during something you're doing. It's not meant to be sitting, having floating platforms forever in the air. So after this particular operation, the idea is that you would park your ship either on the ground if you want to pay the price to lift it up again later, or if it's really too big, you lift it up in space and you park it into a station. That was the intent. So it appears that there are some other uses that have been developed because of the Alt F4 limit. Do we want to keep those uses? We're going to see. We're going to discuss that. It may necessitate to actually develop something else or to change the way the AGG are working. But right now, the way it's working and it's revealed with this Alt F4 change, because indeed, if you Alt F4, the thing is going to now drop on the floor. uh, that is showing different dynamics. Now that being said, the default ECU emergency control unit now is taking um, the AGG into account, so it will start it if it's not already started. It has not been tested enough, I think, but the idea is that if you Alt F4 and there is an ECU and you have an AGG, it should be okay. uh, Now there could be bugs also because the somehow the elements are not loaded or things like that. So we're going to look into this. And indeed, there might be some simple bugs now that makes the AGG not working. But the intent is what I just said. You use it as part of an ongoing mission. You're doing something, and once you're done, you don't rely on the AGG to sustain your ship in the air because you park it. I hope I understand. What you guys what we're about to say about the AGG.
Let us
Uh,
know if we didn't answer that correctly, and
yeah,
we'll come back to
if
it.
I didn't understand your question and just blah blah talk on the side, just let me know.
Perfect. So I just want to double back to org wallets. Are when are we expecting those?
It should come in the next release. So not 023, the next release.
024.
I
So
think that's what comes after 23. I agree.
I was going to go to
unless
26, but
unless maybe we call it 23.5 or no, that's 24. So it should arrive really early 2021. That's the goal. And it's a very important thing as well. I mean, this is part of the things. There's a lot of things like that they are. It's really a big problem that they are not in the game. Because people find ways to turn around the problem, and I mean, it really doesn't really work. Organizations without a wallet. I mean, think about a company, because an organization is a bit like a company or a nation, but somehow you don't have a bank account for the company. Like, I don't know, the CEO is keeping the money for everybody. Doesn't work right. So we know that there's a fix coming, and don't worry about that. Um, and there's a lot of things like that we want to fix. By the way, okay, I'm not going to list all of the things that bothers me, but there are a lot.
so one of the things I want to cover is the element destruction changes that we have. Some of our space pirates are a little bit concerned that it kind of negates the need, or I guess the desire, to go after those ships. Do you want to offer anything towards that?
I know it's a very interesting point. It's adding another dimension to the job of pirates in the sense that you have now different choices. You could completely obliterate your target, but that's not a good strategy because again, if you think of it from a realistic point of view, it's like a pirate that completely destroys the ships he wants to pirate. Doesn't make any sense. So what you want to do as a pirate usually is, for example, you can show your firepower and say, well, we're going to be obliterating you if you don't comply. And then you board the ship and you do something of that like that. Or you develop a way to surgically destroy what you need to destroy, in other words, the core unit, which is not that easy with the current PvP, I agree. But, in principle, it should be possible for you to do some surgical destruction if you want to. And the total destruction of a ship should be, in fact, something that is limited to military operations, where the goal is explicitly to neutralize and penalize your enemy by destroying his property. So that's a form of answer, is to say that it's going to get more subtle on that matter. So just destroying a ship entirely almost is well. That being said, also, as I said, there are several lives, if you want, to your elements. uh, so you really lose them if you happen to be destroying them while they had only one restoration left. Most of the time, I suppose that people are going to fly with ships that have at least two, if not three, restorations. Um, because obviously, otherwise it's extremely dangerous. You don't have any fallback. So it's not entirely sure, as a pirate, that you end up with having a ship that cannot be entirely repaired. So again, is it a problem, or is it something, a more opportunity, more density, and tactics? I think it's more density, more tactics, more interesting things. So we'll see.
You guys have so many questions. I'm struggling to keep up here.
I should try
I
to be shorter in my answers, so there are less questions between each answers.
That's right. We are going to collect a lot of these burning questions, and we'll try to get the information back out to you guys. But I know we are running out of time. Um, There's a question about. Sorry, bear with me one second.
No, transfer units will not require schematics. I've seen
Thank
this
you.
question 1,000
That was one
times.
of them.
No.
Will schematics be required for all of the honeycombs?
Yes, and the only things is that you want to have schematics for each color. At least, I mean, that was the plan, and I hope it has been implemented. That you with a schematic for a particular honeycomb, you can do any type of colors. It's the same schematic, and overall, we don't have time yet for that, but colors should be just a property, and it should not be defining the element, the honeycomb. But that's not yet implemented.
One of the last questions I'm going to touch on here is we've seen a lot of people asking, what is gameplay for the solo player? What do you see for the solo player in Dual Universe?
Well, I think the answer, if we talk now or later, is not the same.
Mhm.
Later, I would tend to say the mission system is going to be super cool, and especially for the solo player who doesn't have a big plan, just want to feel the game and just progress, experiment with certain gameplays. Um, in the long run, we are working and considering how we could actually make some kind of arenas. You have today, the tutorials, so you get into a sort of instance. It's not an instance, but it's like an instance for you. There's a whole planet that is just for you with the things, right? So the idea would be to push that so that you could get into such a sandbox, we call it. You could get into such a sandbox with different players. So if we put some ships on those sandbox, you could actually get into those ships and start to fight against 3, 4, 10, 100 players. That numbers ring a bell, and see who is the last man standing and things like that. So, and then you get reward for that. Maybe everybody's betting, when you enter, so whoever's winning gets all the pot. And the point is that this is going to be something you can do repetitively. It's fun. It doesn't need to be part of a grand schema that I want to build the Death Star or something like that. And so this is going to be something for solo players. I think very very interesting. Um, right now, if it's a game where you have to have a goal. You have to set yourself a goal, where you want to be, what you want to do, and then everything comes from that. You sort of compute back the things you have to do before you can reach that goal, and that gives you a sort of a list of sub goals. But we want to make sure that people who are not yet ready or not don't have time also, because that's time consuming, of course, can actually have other options in their at their disposal, so they can explore the game in the way they want, at the speed they want, when they want. And that's going to come, let's say, by the time of release, because there's a lot of design and thinking to go on in this direction. um, and yeah, so if you're a solo player today, I think if you like to build this, it's a fantastic environment where you can build and efficient things, and you can do that on the safety of your tile, on the Sanctuary Moon, for example, or even on Alioth. It's cool. I mean, it's already something you can do. Uh, can you do a solo PvP? I'm not so sure yet, but that's gonna come. It's just there's a long road until we get all those things in place.
And that's exactly it. This is just the start of the road. We have lots of things coming. So there you have it. I have one last question for you, JC. This one has been a burning topic as long as I have been here. But triangular windows, when?
Well, we have Canopy in the 023, so
There
at
you
least
have it.
that's it. Yes.
Canopies are finally in, folks. Please show us what you're going to do with them. I can't wait to see your builds. So there you have it. We are going to, as I mentioned, do some more questions later on the forums, or perhaps a blog. I'm not sure the format yet. We'll get back to you on that. But we wanted to thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. This has been really exciting. I don't think you'll see us again before the new year, but we will be back with more information soon. Thank you, and we love you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye.